Hello, and welcome back to Macbeth Revision Quotes. Act 3. At the start of Act 3, Banquo begins to tell the audience that he suspects Macbeth by saying, "Thou playest most foully for it," referencing to the fact that he believes that Macbeth only became king by committing a foul act. We also see in this scene that Macbeth begins to use the word wheel in reference to his own self. He begins to use, in other words, the royal we. Later on in the scene, Macbeth states, "Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and but a barren sceptre in my gripe." He is referencing the fact that he believes his children will not become king, and he wishes to defy Banquo's prophecy. Later on, when speaking to the first murderer, he says, "And I will put the business in your bosoms, whose executions take your enemy off." Later he says, "Both of you know Banquo was your enemy, so is he mine," referencing the fact that he is trying to convince the murderers that Banquo was their enemy, so it is just for them to kill him. Further on in the scene, he also states, "Fleance, his son that keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour," referencing to the fact that he wishes Fleance to die as well. In the next scene, Lady Macbeth says, "Naught had, all spent, where our desire got without content." In this line, she is referencing the fact that although she is on the throne, it has given her no enjoyment. Macbeth states, "Sleep in the affliction of terrible dreams that shake us nightly better," showing that he is troubled sleeping. Later he says, "Make our face visors to our hearts, distinguishing what they are," once again saying that the hearts must not be worn on their sleeves, and they must show a fake appearance. Macbeth then says, "Be innocent of the knowledge, my dearest Chuck, till thous appall the deed." This is far different since the beginning of the play, as beforehand Lady Macbeth made decisions and Macbeth followed her. Now Macbeth is making decisions and he's not telling her. This shows a dramatic shift in their relationship. In the next scene, the second murderer says, "He needs not our mistrust," referencing to the fact that Macbeth does not need them to be untrustworthy of him. Later on, in a line where Banquo says, "It will be rain tonight," it is present that this is in fact imagery. In Act 3, Scene 4, the Banquo scene, Banquo's ghost is symbolized. The first murderer tells Macbeth that Banquo lies in a ditch. In the line, "In a ditch he brides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head," Macbeth responds by saying, "There the grown serpent lies, the worms that fled." Later into the scene, Lady Macbeth says, "Shame itself," and "What quite unmanned in folly." Macbeth says towards the end of the scene, "And keep the natural ruby of your cheeks." He then says, "There's not a one of them, but in his house I kept a servant freed. I am in blood, stepped in so far that, should I wait no more, returning were as tedious as goer," referencing the fact that if he stopped killing, it would be just as hard if he continued on. Lady Macbeth says, "You lack the season of all nature's sleep." And here the scene ends. In Act 3, Scene 5, Hecate states that the witches should draw Macbeth into confusion. In the line, "Draw him on to his confusion." This shows that the witches are deliberately manipulating Macbeth. In the next scene, Lennox says the line, "The gracious Duncan," and the Lord says, "Thou most priest Edward," contrasting Edward with Macbeth. Towards the end of the act, Lennox states, "Our suffering country, under our hand accursed." Macbeth's subjects is shown in this line that they are conspiring against him because of his mistreatment.